So recently I have tuned back into NXT 2.0. I mean, I only stopped watching because there is so much wrestling on TV, sometimes it's really hard. But after going to WrestleMania weekend and thinking WWE is so going to push the absolute crap out of Bron Breakker, I thought it made sense to start watching it again, because it's good to be informed. It certainly seems like he was all but ready to be called up to the main roster recently before we changed our minds. And ever since then, WWE has been making a very worrying mistake. Why? Here's why. Now, I have got nothing against anybody in NXT. In fact, I think they take way too much flack considering they are basically learning on the job, and not every single one of them is going to be a Kurt Angle. I mean, he just walked up to a wrestling training center one day, looked at the ring, and bada bing, bada boom, he was one of the best ever. There's always going to be some bumps along the way, quite literally as well, because not only do you have to learn the moves, not only do you have to learn how to work with someone else, but then you get thrown out in front of a crowd, and you've got to understand how to work them too. So it takes forever, although Breakker seems a little bit different because he seems to be in the mold of the Olympic gold medalist. It was like he was born to do this, which means we really should have called him Born Breakker. Sorry, I shouldn't have said it. It's not a huge surprise because he does have those Steiner genes that are just tailor-made for sports entertainment. And when he first bust onto the scene, I was like, all right, here we go. Clearly Vince McMahon is going to love this guy, and finally we can see somebody starting developmental and move up to Raw and SmackDown and absolutely smash it. Too many times people always say, well, this is a mistake because they haven't paid their dues, but I don't care about anybody paying their dues or not paying their dues. I want you to feel the situation and then pull the trigger. Always something happened and WWE started being daft. Because much like Goldberg when he first came to WWE, or when Oscar left NXT to go to the main roster, there seems to be this obsession with marginalizing talent because that's what we do with everybody else, so why wouldn't we do it with you? Well, I'll tell you why. Because when you look at this situation, that's not what makes the most sense. Because no one on this planet is going to be able to convince me that having Bron Breakker tear through NXT and then doing the same on either Monday or Friday nights wouldn't work. Like, he just has that explosive power that you can't teach, and as soon as you see him do one of his big moves, that's it, your brain makes up its mind and you want to see him do some more. I mean, you look at him and just go, yep, he could kick your ass, and now I totally believe in him. And yet at the moment on NXT 2.0, he is feuding with Joe Gacy as he takes on weird druids in masks and competes in strange stipulation matches. Because soon he is going to be defending his title, and if he gets disqualified, he will lose it. Now look, that's a wrestling trope, and it can work, and it has worked in the past, but not when it comes to Bron Breakker. He is an on-fire babyface, so I don't want him to be negated just because we wanted to muck around with some strange rules. I want him to march to the ring, I want him to snort fire out of his nose, and then I want him to clothesline someone so hard I'm like, he really got him. And that's what we were doing, and I thought it was working fine, but then I remembered that WWE has this playbook, and really 9 times out of 10, they never want to deviate from it. And I don't know if it's because they want to keep everything contained, or they just don't want to upset the status quo, but if you paint everyone with the same brush, you're just going to end up with the same picture. I just came up with that and it's pretty good. Goldberg really is the best example of this, because when he was brought in 2003, what do we want to see? We wanted to see WCW Goldberg. He gets in the ring, he's out the ring within about 2 minutes, and in that time we've seen him give someone a spear, we've seen him give someone a jackhammer, he goes rah, we go rah, everybody's happy. I mean, even WCW had proved that if you actually leave this repertoire, it doesn't work. So what do? We put Bill in 10-minute matches and had him be ha-ha comedy guy when Goldust put a wig on his head. So it's not a real big surprise that Goldberg left a year later, and I do think Breakker is going to be fine, because he's clearly a favourite of Vince McMahon, but just imagine this story, imagine this tale. You hear all these rumblings about the young rookie who is just destroying your third brand, to the point both Raw and SmackDown are like, well, we need a hot new wrestler on our show, why don't we get into a bidding war? This eventually does happen, and he goes after the Raw or SmackDown championship instantly, and all of a sudden, you've created a new star. But no, instead we've gone, I know what all this is missing, shenanigans. And not just shenanigans, but voodoo shenanigans. And then his dad got kidnapped, and we just dropped that storyline. And you just kind of look around going, I don't know what's going on. And do not forget that I love goofy wrestling, and this is coming from me, and I don't mind you trying stuff as long as you're able to pivot. And now it looks like we're walking down this path. We're going to continue regardless. I just want more stories like this because they always work. Like if you have an individual that somehow represents a ball of thunder, then just treat him like a ball of thunder. I mean, go with it, throw caution to the wind, do a bungee jump off a mountain or whatever gets your adrenaline going. But really, all I want when I sit down to watch wrestling is to get some kind of emotional connection. And if he can do that by barely doing anything, we should be jumping for joy. You may even get more people watching NXT, and what it really all breaks down to is that we know what the obvious thing is, but then we second guess ourselves and go, well, we got there too easily, so we must have to come up with something more complicated. But no, you don't. 2 + 2 = 4. It doesn't equal Billabong. I mean, this ain't Shakespeare. That's the truth of it. And I do think probably Bron will be on the main roster in around about 6 months or so. And when we do that, there should be plans in place about how he is going to dethrone Roman Reigns. I've talked about this in other videos, but why the flub wouldn't you do that? It's so easy. And it's just look at you in the eye, and who else is going to beat you? Drew McIntyre? I love Drew. He is one of my favorite wrestlers right now. But let's be honest, he don't need it. I mean, we mentioned Asuka earlier too, and don't forget there were rumors after she had gone up to the main roster that people were like, well, what are we going to do with this undefeated streak? It's like a burden around our necks, as opposed to seeing it as a massive opportunity to potentially turn her into the biggest star in the company. And she did well despite all of this, but it could have been so much more. I don't want to become Reddit or nothing, but it really sometimes does just come down to wins and losses. Like if you don't know who somebody is, and then they beat one guy, they beat another guy, they beat a third guy, a fourth guy, fifth guy, sixth guy, seventh guy, eighth guy, ninth guy, 10th guy, you start looking around like, oh, I should pay attention to him. I mean, you know, like in AEW right now, Wardlow is becoming the second personification of one Bill Goldberg that feels like it was a complete accident. Well, WWE could reel some of this in, because Wardlow ain't undefeated. When was the last time we had an undefeated streak? I'm sure there has been one, but we didn't take it all the way to the Town of Joy, which means it hasn't stuck in my brain. I get that Bron Breakker will lose down at NXT, but I can't help that. But when he gets to Raw and SmackDown, well, I made my point. So I really do hope that WWE takes a risk with Bron Breakker, even though I don't think it's that much of a risk. I mean, he's got that Steiner promo skill, which means he can say whatever he wants and no one's going to care anyway. They're just going to enjoy the delivery. But when we're this close to hopefully finally creating a new star, please do not drop the ball now, WWE. Not that I won't get over it in a few hours, I will, because in the grand scheme of life, it's not actually that important. Now, please do leave a comment below and let us know a few things. 1, what do you want to see down with Bron Breakker when he's in NXT? But also 2, what do you want him to do when he comes up to the main roster? And 3, should he be the guy to defeat Roman Reigns? Then like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Please do head over to WhatCulture.com where you can read articles like this with your eyes. You can also follow us on social media. Just go do some digging. We do have a lot of videos, some of which are why videos. You can watch them. My name is Simon WhatCulture. Thank you for joining me as always. And like I say, I think this is going to play out all fine unless we get to the NXT show and he loses the belt by disqualification. If you're trying to build a super duper hero that we all love, he should be losing, that wasn't even English, by a stupid stipulation. It just doesn't make any sense. I don't know why I've got to be in my bonnet about this, but I just do. I'm going to throw it over there. It's out now, so I enjoy these videos. Goodbye.